I'm not going to fall for a banana in the tailpipe. Hey, I'm Amy and welcome back. And today I am checking Beverly Hills Cop off the 1001 movie checklist. If you don't know what the 1001 movie checklist or 1001 movie challenge is, it is basically a challenge I've given myself to watch every single movie in the 1001 movies you must see before you die book. So far, I've checked 153 films off of the list. If you want to know more, you can check out this playlist with the intro video up there. I am also an Amazon affiliate, so if you would like to take the challenge on yourself, watch the movie I talked about today, or get ready for the movie I'm going to be talking about next week, you can check out the links in the description below. If you purchase anything from there, I get a little bit of a kickback, which helps make this channel even better. As always, let's get started with a very short summary. Axel Foley, a streetwise detective from Detroit, heads to Los Angeles to investigate the murder of an old friend, much to the chagrin of the Beverly Hills Police. I have a feeling this is going to be a fairly short video because at its surface level, and after watching it all the way through, it is very much just your standard 80s buddy cop movie. The thing that makes it really special though is the writing and the quips that Eddie Murphy makes throughout, which I will talk about a little bit later on. But first, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a fun fact that I found when doing my research, as I always like to do as much as I possibly can. Did you know that Sylvester Stallone was actually supposed to play Axel Foley instead of Eddie Murphy? That would have made this movie so totally different. As Sylvester Stallone is known to do, it would have been a totally bloody movie. It would not have been a comedy. It probably wouldn't have been as fun of a buddy cop movie as it was with Eddie Murphy. It feels like it would have been so weird to not have Eddie Murphy's signature comedy style in this because he is one of the greatest. He does some of the stupidest but funniest comedy things like poke fun at racism or use racism as a way or as more of a comedic element than just as a political or just as a statement. Something I will talk about later in this video is how this movie plays with racism a little bit, which would have been very, very different if Sylvester Stallone had played Axel instead of Eddie Murphy. Right from the very top, it is just an 80s movie through and through. The music that they choose for the opening credits, the way that they do the opening credits sequence, which is just setting up the location of the first couple scenes, which is Detroit, showing how Eddie Murphy's character kind of is. Even though they don't show Eddie Murphy's character, you really get to see what his environment is like before he goes to LA. You see that he's in Detroit and it's kind of made him a hardened cop, or you have to be very streetwise, which is what Eddie Murphy is. He's a very smart, very streetwise cop. The opening credits really show how street, I feel like really stupid for using that, but it kind of makes sense to me. They're using this as making Detroit kind of its own character for these first little bits of the movie to show just how rough it is there. And then going back to the music, there is just pure 80s pop music throughout this entire film.
Running out of time, there's no room in this so heart of mine. Bill collectors waiting down the hall.
And we cannot forget the Axel F theme that just plays constantly throughout this movie.
You know, this is the cleanest and nicest police car I've ever been in my life. This thing's nice in my apartment.
And a lot of people will know this though. A lot of 90s kids will know this and recognize this and probably only know it as, or will call it out, be like, hey, that's the Crazy Frog song. Not realizing that Crazy Frog stole this song from this movie. Crazy Frog even titled their song the exact same name.
What's going on?
And probably my favorite, well, not my favorite scene. The clip I chose for this movie is my favorite scene in this probably, but one of my favorite, pretty much very quintessential 80s movie scenes in this is the opening chase scene. It's just a very 80s chase scene. It's a huge truck barreling down suburban-esque streets, down a city street. It goes everywhere, and there's so much random destruction. There's even just a random car that blows up in the background somewhere after it gets hit. The truck just destroys cars randomly. And now for the little bit I'm going to talk about how this movie deals with racism. And all of this is probably just me seeing it through a lens of today's society, whereas this probably wasn't as relevant or prevalent. Maybe it was in the 80s, but just from what has been happening in the last couple years, well, actually the last couple months, with Black people getting called on to get arrested in a Starbucks because they were just sitting there. Things like that have been happening a lot recently in our society today in the 2000s, and this was in the 1980s. I feel like it might be skewing my perception of what some of the things that happened in this movie. Granted, a lot of these racism things that I pulled out, or commentaries on racism, were just from the first couple minutes, and there was really only one real pinpoint that they call it out, and it is when Eddie Murphy is trying to get a room at the hotel. He uses his race to make a big scene and get himself a room at this hotel.
I was gonna call the article, Michael Jackson is sitting on top of the world, but now I think I might as well just call it, Michael Jackson can sit on top of the world just as long as he doesn't sit in the Beverly Palm Hotel, because there's no niggas allowed in there.
Excuse me, sir. It seems that we do have a last-minute cancellation.
Even though it probably wasn't that, they really just did not have rooms. It was a commentary on how white people treat Black people differently a little bit. And there's also the scene where Axel gets thrown out, literally thrown out of Maitland's office. I don't think he actually comments on the fact that he's Black, but at least I got a feel of the connotations that it's just 6 white dudes carrying out this Black man, all of them carrying him out. It's very, very strange. And then they literally throw him out of a window. And then a cop car pulls up and these 2 white cops arrest him.
Please get in the car, sir.
Yeah, but tell me, son, what's the charge?
Possession of a concealed weapon and disturbing the peace. Disturbing the peace? I got thrown out of a window!
To me, it just felt a little bit like they were commenting on or poking fun at the fact that this happens a lot more than people realize, or that it's just something that happens all the time and nothing is being done about it. But I think after he gets arrested, after getting thrown out of the window, they don't really talk about it. So that's like the first maybe 30 minutes of the movie, if that. And after all that nitty gritty, digging deep into the movie, because honestly I don't think there is a whole lot else to dig deep into this, I want to talk about some of my favorite characters in this, or just some of my favorite actors in this. Like, as soon as I saw him when Axel and his friend are getting into Axel's apartment and Axel gets knocked out, Jonathan Banks, I almost didn't recognize him. It took me like a couple extra seconds to realize who it was because of his hair. And granted, he is basically playing Mike Ehrmantraut. I feel like I always say his last name wrong, but he's basically playing Mike from Breaking Bad, again, just with hair. And I feel like he gets typecast because of this character. I didn't really look a whole lot deeper into his IMDb credits, but I feel like this movie may have typecast him, or he just has that demeanor. He's just a very serious guy, very serious, like bodyguard kind of guy, enforcer, that he gets cast in a lot of these kind of roles. But I loved seeing him. He was probably one of my favorite, if not like probably my top like 3 to 5 characters in Breaking Bad. So I was just very happy to see him in this. And then, of course, probably my favorite character in this, and the reason I want to watch the other 2 Beverly Hills Cop movies, is Judge Reinhold. I love him so much. He is such a dork, and it's so funny how just uncomfortable he can be.
Police! You're all under arrest!
You do that again, I'll shoot you myself.
And I just love Judge Reinhold no matter what. He's always the best. And then, of course, I can't not talk about Eddie Murphy. He is the star of this movie. He is one of the greatest comedians, I think. He can get away with so much. He can do so much. He does like to do a lot of more, what a lot of people would say is a little bit offensive for some with his jokes. He likes to pull race into it, do kind of sexist jokes, kind of things like that. But in this movie, he didn't do those as much as he would do in some of his like stand-up shows. I think he did a little bit of it when he was on SNL. liked his comedy in this. It was just very classic Eddie Murphy to me before he really became more of a family comedian like he did with Daddy Daycare. He had a lot of dramatic parts in this, like especially after his best friend was killed, and he does some dramatic scenes in this and he does them very well, and I was very surprised. And I kind of skipped over this when I was talking about the comedy part a little bit, but I just remembered. There is a scene in this movie where he's in the jail cell right after he gets arrested, and he just has this funny little aside that I couldn't help but just crack up laughing. I had to pause the movie because I was laughing at it so much. It's really sad because it's not like super funny, but the way he delivered the line I thought was really great, and I kind of wanted to share it with you guys before I move on to the clip.
Well, it's about time. I thought you guys forgot I was down here. I was getting hungry. I never been in no cell that had a phone in it. Can I stay for a while? Because I ordered some pizza. Somebody eat it.
So for the clip for this movie was one that got a lot of follow-up jokes throughout the rest of the film. I love the setup of it because it's not really something that you kind of know where it's going until it goes there. It made me laugh the entire time, and the follow-up to it just made me laugh even harder about why he was doing it. So this is probably my favorite scene in the entire movie for a stupid reason.
I need a couple of bananas. How much are they?
Well, the buffet plate is $12.50. You get peaches, plums, oranges, and bananas.
Well, all I need is a couple of bananas.
Shh. Go ahead, take those bananas.
Hey.
And that is all I have for Beverly Hills Cop. As always, these are just my opinions, but I would love to know yours in the comments down below. Have you seen Beverly Hills Cop? Which of the three is your favorite? If you want to know which films I have already watched, or just follow my progress along in general, there's a link to a Google Doc in the description down below with every movie I have watched so far. And for the next movie, I picked it for a couple of reasons. The first and foremost is I'm always in a very true crime documentary kind of mood. I love true crime. I listen to a ton of true crime podcasts, so if you have any good suggestions, please let me know in the comments down below. I'll probably talk about that and ask for more suggestions on the video for the next video for this, because I have been in a true crime phase more so recently than anything. I saw this documentary on Netflix, and it's been on there for a while, but I wanted to watch it before they just randomly decide to take it off like they tend to do. So I'm gonna do it now before it's gone. And I also think it is the first documentary, like real true documentary I have covered in this series. I think it's not the first one I think I've watched all the way through. Man with a Movie Camera can be considered a bit of a documentary. It is listed as a documentary in the book, but I do consider it a little bit of a abstract narrative. So I'm considering Aileen Wuornos' Life and Death of a Serial Killer as the first documentary I am checking off the list. And for this one, I am not sure if I'll be able to find a link to purchase a Blu-ray or DVD of it. So if I do, there will be a link in the description. If not, you can just watch this on Netflix if you're in the US. But that is everything I have today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really truly do appreciate every single one of you. Let me know who you are in the comments down below, and let's be friends. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe if you're new, because I love talking all things movies, TV shows, filmmaking, film history, all that fun stuff, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!